Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary of Work, Admiral Winnefeld, thank you for being here. I appreciate your attempt to answer questions that I think perhaps may be unanswerable at this point, which is part of our concern. I want to associate myself with Ms. Duckworth's comments. The reason why people are concerned about this being a slush fund is because these are very large numbers, and the detail is lacking. But they're concerned not just because of the concern of waste or that you may be ineffective in addressing serious issues. It's the issue of that we want to know what you're going to do because we're concerned about the outcomes here, not just the outcome of spending, the outcomes of what you're trying to accomplish. And that brings me to the European Reassurance Initiative. I'm obviously very supportive of the European Reassurance Initiative when you look at the backdrop of what Russia's been doing. I believe the administration's been pursuing a false narrative with Russia that they're not an adversary, and Russia obviously has declared itself an adversary. But what we've learned from General Breedlove with the new aggressiveness of Russia, both in its military posture and its actions, is that it's undertaken a number of snap exercises on the border of some NATO countries and certainly Ukraine, as we've seen in Ukraine, that developed into actually an invasion force. So I'm concerned that one, the whole fact that we need a European Reassurance Initiative is because the operational funds for our presence in Europe have been cut too much, and two, there has been a lack of recognition of really the threat of what we're facing. Admiral Winnefeld, could you provide us some additional detail as to what you see? For example, has General Breedlove given you, details as what types of exercises and initiatives would occur here? He's talked about a lack of readiness on the part of our forces and European forces if Russia should continue its aggressive stance. And Secretary of Work, you indicated that these funds were temporary. Certainly you don't believe that Russia's new posture is a temporary one. So hopefully you mean it's temporary and that you would need these funds to be incorporated into larger spending, sustained larger spending in the out years. If you could explain that. Admiral?
A couple of things. First of all, I think it's important to remember that the base budget for the DoD was submitted before any of this happened. And so this is essentially trying to recover from that, quite honestly, that there are initiatives we need to do in order to support, particularly our Eastern European partners who are not quite as strong as some of our Western European partners from a defense perspective. General Breedlove has already done a large number of things, and I'm not going to eat up the clock by describing all of those, but it's a significant force movements that we're taking out of Hyde with Air Force movements from Italy into various countries to support them with company-level training and the like. In terms of the ERI initiatives, though, they would do a number of things. An Armored Brigade combat team presence, which is quite expensive, we would be able to maintain that for a while longer. Allied deployments in the Black Sea, more Baltic air policing, deploying forces to train with Moldova, Georgia, a few more NATO exercises, increasing some of the training range capabilities and training sites in Bulgaria we would be doing. Weapon storage at Camp Darby in Italy, upgrading that, and a number of other increased activities across Central and Eastern Europe. And you're correct, I think some of those are actually going to have to be enduring. We're going to have to fold those into perhaps next year's base budget submission, but some of them, as Deputy Secretary I think has pointed out in other testimony, are one-year type things in that you would upgrade a facility, for example, a pre-positioning facility that is something that would be a one-time expenditure. I think that's where we were coming from in terms of short-term.
Secretary of Work, so you would agree that this is not going to be a temporary and by the way, you should probably rename this instead of European Reassurance Initiative, the Responding to Russian Aggression Fund instead. But Secretary of Work?
Well, sir, your overall point, we are going through a European infrastructure consolidation right now that will not take out any further forces than we're already in the baseline plan. As the Vice Chairman said, this was to react to a situation on the ground in Eastern Europe.
But you believe this is going to have to be sustained, right? You don't see that the Russian aggression, their current posture being a temporary circumstance. You do believe that this fund is because we've cut too far and we have to reinvest.
Well, what we'll do, sir, is in the fall review, we will readdress this as part of a broader look at our portfolio and take this in.
Well, this is a yes or no question. Do you believe this circumstance to be temporary, that it will not require additional funding in the future?
The ERI, I'm not certain we would ever come back in the OCO, but I agree with you that what is happening in Europe will cause us to look over the longer term and what our investments would need to be.
Thank you, Secretary of Work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.